Shabbat Shalom. So this week, as I was flying back from my trip to LA, I began watching White Lotus. I'm a little late to the game, but better late than never. Without giving away too much of the plot for those who are even further behind me, there's a storyline in the first season where Jennifer Coolidge's character, Tanya, is attempting to spread her mother's ashes. As she does, she breaks down in grief. While the breakdown itself isn't surprising, the memories she proceeds to share of her mother are not what we were necessarily expecting. Rather than speak of a loving, nurturing mother whom she misses dearly, she speaks of a woman with whom she had a fraught and complicated relationship. In fact, she rails against her mother's treatment of her, and yet is simultaneously overcome with grief. So why is our grief often more pronounced for someone with whom we have a fraught relationship? For many of us, it's actually the difficult relationship itself that is the hardest to accept, because in death, the fraught nature of the relationship is left permanent. Until someone dies, there may be a shard of hope that that relationship can be altered for the better, thereby creating at least a few memories that we want to hold on to. But once someone dies, no new memories can be created, and we are left only to choose from the ones that exist. This is what we see Coolidge's character struggling with. As she releases the ashes, she so wants to release those bad memories, but she feels as if she would have nothing left. And so she holds on not just to the memories, but to the ashes as well. The scene is both tragic and comedic, and all too relatable. As Jews, we understand the desire to remember. We are a people of memory. Many of our rituals are done in memory of something that came before. The tzitzit that we wear on our garment are reminders of our obligation to observe the mitzvot. When we eat matzah, we are reminding ourselves of the journey from slavery. When a bride and a groom break the glass at the conclusion of the wedding ceremony, it is a symbolic reminder of the sorrows the Jewish people have experienced. But our tradition also recognizes that it is neither possible nor healthy to remember everything. As labor Zionist Beryl Katznelson teaches us, human beings are endowed with two faculties, memory and forgetfulness. We cannot live without both. Were only memory to exist, then we would be crushed by its burden. We would become slaves to our memories and to our ancestors. And were we ruled entirely by forgetfulness, what place would there be for culture and science? A renewing and creative generation does not throw away the cultural heritage of the ages into the dustbin. It examines and scrutinizes, accepts and rejects. At times, it may keep and add to an existing tradition. Working as a hospice chaplain for years before joining Stephen Wise, I'm well acquainted with the complexities of memory. Often when a loved one dies, I remind the family that they are now in charge of their memories. They can choose which parts of the relationship or the life of their loved ones they want to focus on. As Katznelson implies, we are to be selective in our memories, acknowledging the difficulties of our past, but remembering the good and the sweet as well. For the purpose of memory is to make us better, not bitter. When a family member or friend passes on, we, the living, are left with memories. As we edit that book of memories, we accept that life has adversity, but then we hopefully choose to highlight the memories that speak to the core of our loved ones. The reality is no relationship is perfect, but do we choose to remember every slight perpetrated against us, or do we choose instead to focus on the times our loved ones treated us with kindness, love, and care? What we choose to remember and what we choose to forget shapes how we remember the relationship. But this idea holds true not just for our personal relationships, but for our historical experiences as well. Were we only to remember the pain inflicted upon us by various groups and countries over the years, we would live as perpetual victims in search of stability. Although we should never forget the hardships that we have endured, it does not need to be the defining characteristic of our Judaism. We see a great example this week in our Torah portion of Joseph selectively choosing his memories. After testing his brothers to be sure that they have indeed changed their ways, he decides to reveal himself to them. At first, they are scared, expecting him to remember the harsh treatment and exact revenge. They did, after all, throw him into a pit and sell him into slavery. But instead, he tells them not to worry, that clearly God meant for good, even if they meant for harm. In doing this, Joseph chooses to focus on the fact that despite the harsh treatment, things ended up working out exactly as planned. Therefore, he's willing to forget the feelings of resentment towards them for selling him into slavery, and instead gratefully remember that God put him in the right place at the right time. His ability to forgive and forget allows Jacob and his entire family to survive the famine as they come down to Egypt to join Joseph. If Joseph had instead chosen to focus on the harsh treatment he had received at the hands of his brothers, he would never have been able to forgive and move on. And though we couldn't blame him for that, our history would be forever changed. Dara Horn, an author of her earlier book, In a Guide to the Perplexed, a novel, she writes, "We control the way we remember the past, and that's what matters to the present. We choose what is worthy of our memory. We probably should be grateful that we can't remember everything as God does, because if we did, we would find it impossible to forgive anyone." The limit of human memory encourages humility. As we move into 2023, we take some time to think about the memories we created this year. Inevitably, there are good and bad memories along the way. What parts of this year made us better? What parts may have left us bitter? But as we learn from our ancestors and teachers, we now have not only the ability, but the obligation to choose how we want to remember this year. Which memories will we choose to carry into the new year with us, and which ones will we choose to forget and leave in 2022? The choice is up to each one of us. Shabbat Shalom and Happy New Year.